For today's video, we will be going to talk about richest people react to China's economic crisis. Let's get started. George Soros, multi-billionaire. Since Xi Jinping took office in 2013, the real estate industry has served as China's primary driver of growth. As a result, the country is currently experiencing an economic crisis. The foundation of the real estate boom is an unsustainable model. Apartment buyers must begin making payments even before the building are completed, since the system is credit-based. The majority of municipal governments' income comes from selling land and steadily growing prices. Prices had to finally beyond what the average person could afford. In the middle of 2021, it took place. By that point, the boom had expanded to an unhealthy large extent, accounting for close to 30% of the economy and consuming an ever-increasing amount of credit. After gradually accelerating, the property boom came to an end with a bang. Residential land prices were over 30% higher in June 2021. Compared to the same month the previous year. The top leadership directed ranks not to boost lending for residential property in an effort to slow down the base. Contrary to what was intended, the instruction made it difficult for Grande, the biggest and most leveraged developer ever, to fulfill its obligations. People in both flats started to worry what they might not ever receive the homes they were paying for as subcontractors who weren't paid ceased working. There were considerably more vendors than buyers when the primary selling season began in September, and for a while there were practically any transactions at the listed pricing. However, prices are now beginning to decline for both real estates and flats. Many people who put the most of their savings into real estate will become hostile towards XI, being as a result of this. Jim Chanis, investment manager. We have shorted and continue to short a few of the larger Chinese financial institutions that have, in our opinion, questionable loan books. It's not difficult to identify a few of the cross-border megabanks that trade in London and have significant exposure to real estate in Hong Kong and China. Which of them are those? We're sorting them. One of the American casino operators in Macau is currently absent. Additionally, there are a few Chinese brokers that trade in the United States, who, in our opinion, are illegally allowing Chinese citizens to purchase shares of American companies. We appreciate a crackdown on these brokers. All things considered, our exposure to China is undoubtedly higher now that it was a year ago, but it is still significantly lower than its peak levels of 2011, 15, and 2016. Having said all that, I do believe that this is a particularly important time to watch what the Chinese leadership does to address the situation. This will be their fourth attempt to slow down the property market since I started following China. There was one in 2011 and one more recently in roughly 2014 to 2015. There was one in 2018, and we are aware of what transpired. The fourth is now available. In each of those situations, the economy quickly stalls and the government steps in. We are aware of what transpired after one in 2018. The fourth is here at this time. Each time, the government took its foot off the brakes and pressed the accelerator once again as the economy swiftly reached stall speed. Of course, doing that has just made matters worse. Charlie Munger, American billionaire, investor, and business. The Chinese government now worries all capitalists much more than it did previously. Naturally, we don't like that. We also wish relations between the United States and China were better. And if you pause to consider it, consider how incredibly dumb it is that the United States and China allowed current tensions to develop. If China and United States are close, if we make friends with the Chinese and vice versa, what horrible thing could possibly ever happen to either of us? And because China isn't the same as the United States and has a lot of difficulties, I don't think we should be criticizing them. They are better at some things than we are. Both of us should get along with each other. In light of the current political unrest, how would you rank making an investment in China? What if you invested through the ownership of American business operating there? Naturally, I have some investments in American businesses that operate in China, such as Coca-Cola. But through the administration of Lalu, I also have a sizable investment in China, whom the Munger family significantly supported when he established a small private equity business to invest in China, and who has a very successful track record, which has caused me to follow the major Chinese companies very closely. And naturally, I had a great deal of success there. Elon Musk, world's richest man. There is sort of an impending bust in the Chinese real estate market because there are simply too many apartments and structures in general. There are also far too many main dwelling units in China, which is absurd considering that major housing units in China have been overbuilt and that individuals are speculating on them, similar to what Americans did in the years leading up to 2008. In 2008, the US led the world. Primary housing units were being built in the US at a rate that was double that of new households. The thing that's difficult to foresee is, for example, whether a war between China and Taiwan or something like that would cause the globe to enter a recession. You are aware of this possibility and are aware that it exists at all times. Kevin Rudd Format, Australian Prime Minister. If we take a step back and ask, what's driving the huge slowdown in growth? Three things are at work in this situation. One is what I refer to as a leftward shift in the Chinese government's emphasis on economic policy over the past few years. We can see this from the government's introduction of a number of policy initiatives that, to put it mildly, have alarmed the Chinese private sector. The second, more urgent reason is what you just mentioned, the zero coverage lockdowns and of course the possibility of a partial repetition of that in Shanghai right now. The third issue over which they have little control is the current state of the world economy. China continues to rely heavily on net exports to drive much of its overall growth. What can they alter about that concoction? Zero clandestine, or the situation of the world economy as long as Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping's ally, is involved in Ukraine. But for the first set of measures, which are all related to this leftward shift in economic policy, I believe the only option really available to the government would be to simply take the foot off the Chinese property sector and allow it to resume its natural operations in the absence of significant direct stimulatory measures. Additionally, it is a case of once bitten, twice shy. Therefore, it is unclear whether the Chinese private sector would simply say, well, that's terrific, we're back to normal now, or whether they would say, aha, what will happen after the 20th Party Congress when Xi Jinping is reappointed in October. November this year, will we then be heading ideologically back towards the left? If there is to be a U-turn or a course correction and some of the left-leaning economic policies brought in by Xi, we have an issue with long-term confidence because of this. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe for more. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Stay tuned for our next video.